So in this video, we're going to make a countdown timer. So let's start off by just doing it with the text box. So in our script, I'm going to start off by making a float variable that will kind of contain the value of our timer. So we'll call this float timer. I'm going to comment out these lines because we don't really need them anymore. And then we'll say when we start off, we want the timer to be equal to 10. And then if we, let's say if we hit the G key, G for go, we will start the timer and the time will kind of count down. So what we can do is if input dot get key down key code dot G. So if we hit the G key, we will start our timer. So because we're not starting it right away, we should have a Boolean that will calculate if our timer is going or not. Boolean timer started. And we will say that at the beginning, timer started is equal to false. And then if we hit the G key, we will start the timer. So timer started is equal to true. So if the timer is started, quick note, if you are curious why I didn't do like equals true or something like that, basically because this is a Boolean, anything that goes within the if statement basically it looks at this and says if this is true, then it will be true, and if it's false, it'll be false. And because a Boolean is either true or false, we don't actually have to say if it's true, right? Because if the timer started is true, it's basically saying if true. So it's like it'll just go. And if timer started is false, we're basically putting like a false statement in here. So we just have to put the timer started variable in here. So that's saying if timer started is true, then we will take the timer value, subtract time.delta time, and then we will put the value of timer into our text box. So my text.text is equal to timer. Now my text.text is a string. Timer is a float, so we need to convert this to a string in order for it to display properly. So we need to change the float to a string. So we're basically casting that into a string. So, and then we can say if timer is less than or equal to 0, we can change the text to be my text.text is equal to timer ended. And we can say timer started is equal to false. So we'll turn off our timer. And then we can also reset our timer. Timer reset. So there we go. So if we hit the G key, we'll start our timer. If the timer started, we're going to count down, and we'll be updating our text with whatever the current value of the timer is. If we go timer is less than 0, basically we're going to say the timer ended, stop the timer, and then reset the value of the timer. So then it's ready for us to hit G to count down again. So I'll hit save, go back into Unity, hit play. Okay, so I hit G, it's going to count down, and then once it gets to 0, what we should see is the text changing. Ready, and timer ended. Okay, and then we should be able to hit G again, and the timer starts over. So, cool. The restarting the timer bit, you don't necessarily have to do this stuff, but you could have something else happen, right? Like maybe the color of a box changes, or I don't know, something activates, or whatever, right? So whatever you're kind of wanting to happen in your scene, you could put, say, hey, once the timer reaches 0, do something. Okay. So what we want to do next is display the value of the timer in a slider. So what I showed before, this is kind of a slider. This is what you would call a slider. So we can create a UI slider, and here it is placed in the middle of the scene. I'm going to put it in the top corner and then maybe like down a little bit and over 10 so it's aligned with our text. And then maybe I'll make it a little bit wider. Okay, cool. So sliders at their heart are an interactable element. So you'll notice if I open up the slider element here, we've got the background color. So we can actually change like what color is my slider. You have the fill area. So what that means is if we slide our slider, it kind of fills up. So this is the background, and if it's at 100% on the timer, it'll show this color instead. So that's the fill color. So we can change the color here, right? And then this is the handle. So this is that little thing that kind of slides. What I do is almost every single time I make a slider, I just delete the slide area. Just get rid of it because we don't actually need it. And then on the slider itself, because it is literally just displaying information, we don't need to interact with it. I just uncheck the interactable box. So this is on the slider itself. You'll notice that the slider is kind of similar to the text in that there is a rect transform component, so you can position it, and then we have the slider component. So important things to note here is these ones are at the bottom. So the minimum value, maximum value, and the direction. So do you want it to go left to right, or do you want it to go right to left, right? I can kind of switch it around. Minimum value 0. Our timer is counting down from 10, so I would want the max value to go up to 10. Just like that. It doesn't really matter with the value. This is the thing that is showing like where the slider is, like how much is kind of one color or the other. So the slider dot value is going to be the thing that we're accessing with our code here. So let's do that. Okay, up here I'm going to make a public slider, my slider. All right. And then basically what we want to do is go down into this code where we're changing the text to show the number, and we're going to make a my slider dot value is equal to timer. That's basically it. So we can change the value of the timer. We will also want to set it here as well, just really quick, so we can set it back up to 10. My slider dot value is equal to timer. So we're going to reset the value of the slider. So that's basically it. My text.text, my slider.value. So value is the thing that changes what the slider is displaying. Before we can get this to work, we need to also tell the script what the slider is. So make sure to drag and drop the slider over here. And now if I hit play, I can hit G and see how it is. So one thing I really like about sliders is I think they're way more effective at creating tension in the scene than text is, because text is a little distracting, right? I want to look at that, but if I'm looking at this slider, I'm like, wow, my time's halfway done, like I'm running out of time so fast, right? It really kind of creates a feeling of anxiety in the scene. So if you're trying to tell someone that they're running out of time, they need to go faster, this can be a really, really effective way for them to understand the time in your scene. All right.